I've been practicing intentional living for over a decade, and it has led to a life of fulfillment and meaning. Hi, my name is Daniel Winge-Mihai. If you haven't been here before, welcome. On this channel, I discuss intentional living, and in this particular video, I'm going to define what intentional living means to me, at what age I started living intentionally, and what impact that has had on my life. By the end of this video, hopefully you'll see that intentional living has a real impact, gives you control, ownership over your own life, and leads you to a life full of purpose. With all that said, let's go ahead and get started. How do I define intentional living? Okay, intentional living is actually pretty simple. It comes down to just a couple steps, right? Identify your goals, identify your current standing, your trajectory, determine whether your current trajectory is in line to hit your goals, and then make adjustments based on that. For example, it's one of my goals to be financially independent. I know, because of the current habits that I have in place, that I have a surplus each month of, let's say, $2,000. And I know that if I allocate $2,000 a month towards saving and investments for the long run, I can probably retire in, say, 20 years. Okay, so if my goal is financial independence, and I know that I'm on target to reach that in 20 years, is there any adjustment required? Well, maybe. Is the 20-year time frame okay with me? Or is it my intention to retire in 10 years? Is it my intention to retire in 30? All of these have an impact, whether or not I'm on path or not. When did I start living with intention? That probably would have been around high school age. Yeah, before that, I was always mindful of what I was doing. I certainly wouldn't have had the vocabulary to say I was living intentionally. But probably around high school is where I really started thinking about it and being conscious. It's when I realized that my current choices affect my future. So, for example, in high school, I was voted president of our National Honor Society chapter. And using that position, I was able to help run a fundraiser to help build funds for a charity out in Tanzania, Africa, for a priest who I actually knew personally who was going to be building an orphanage, or was in the process of building an orphanage, actually. He had come to the United States on mission to try to gather some resources to do so. What was fantastic about that is that it gave me an opportunity to learn that by taking those steps and running that fundraiser, the school continued to do that even after I graduated for years. So by making that one simple decision, it continued to pay dividends well into the future. And that's what living with intention does in your own personal life. So after high school, I remember one particular incident. I had a laptop. It wasn't a very expensive laptop, mind you. It was a pretty cheap laptop. And it got some kind of boot error. It wouldn't load up, it wouldn't log in, it wouldn't do any of that. So I took it to a repair person, right? I didn't know anything about computers. I took it to someone who did. He had the computer for a week or two and called me to let me know I could pick it up. And when I did, he wanted to charge me something like $150 for it, which is over half the value of the laptop. It was kind of ridiculous, but I didn't know any better, so I paid it and I took it home. A little bit after that, the same issue came up again. This time I decided just to Google it. So I went on Google, kind of looked up what the issue was, what the symptoms are, and how to resolve it. And within 15 minutes, I had the problem solved. 15 minutes. Saved myself another $150. I remember at that moment, I distinctly remember at that moment having the choice to be frustrated or to make this an opportunity. I started learning about computers, started building computers, started fixing computers for family and friends, just for the experience of it. Actually, from there, I then pursued a degree in computer and electrical engineering. I didn't realize at the time that they weren't quite related the way I thought it would be. I thought I'd be more building stuff, but after I graduated high school, I had 4 colleges that were in my top choices list. Fortunately, I was accepted into all of them. I had good grades. I surrounded myself with good people in high school. So that motivated me to do well, perform well. I ended up choosing to go to my fourth choice college because it made the most sense. Financially, it made the most sense. They were offering me the best scholarship. Location-wise, it made a lot of sense. It was relatively close to home, would make it easy to move in and move out and to visit my parents. And in terms of other opportunities in the area, there was a large General Electric plant just right up the road from the school, which made it extremely convenient and promising to be able to get a job while I was still in school, which was one of my goals. So, based with all that information, I decided to go to that college. Unbeknownst to me at the time, it was also a good choice because that's where I met my to-be wife. How has living intentionally impacted my life? Well, those decisions that I made in choosing a college definitely paid off. It was my goal to get a part-time job with General Electric, which happened my sophomore year? Was my freshman year. It happened pretty quickly. I also was able to get a part-time job in our IT department, working in the back of the house with the techs who are actually doing real hands-on work with school computer and network systems, so got some good experience from that as well. Graduated top of my class because once again I was surrounded by motivated, intelligent people. And from there I secured a first job. The first job happened to be back in my hometown. It didn't happen to be. It was my goal to get a job close to home, so that's what I pursued. As soon as I started the new job, I immediately started implementing good financial habits, right? Setting aside a large amount for my future, setting up a 401k, a Roth IRA. I think my savings rate was something like 50% at the time, although I was living at home, so that, by at home I mean with my parents, so that helped tremendously. Those money habits, in turn, set me up to do very well financially. I was able to pay off all my student loans very shortly after graduating, within a couple of months, really. Was able to build a pretty sizable nest egg, an emergency fund, 6 months living expenses, something of that nature. After about 5 years at that job, my wife was presented with an opportunity to pursue kind of a dream career of hers. And so we talked about it. We agreed that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her, and that with my degree, it was a little bit more flexible. I'd probably be able to find a job anywhere. So we made the move. Now, we weren't too concerned because, one, she had a job that was still paying her, and two, we had 6 months of living expenses stored up, so we were going to be fine financially. Of course, the timing couldn't have been worse, because that was in February of 2020, and then the globe shut down. But that's okay, because it gave me time to reflect on my interests and my goals. During those several months that I was at home, I was able to pursue new interests. Dungeons and Dragons, right? I got a part-time job at a shooting range to be a range safety officer. It was short-lived, but it was a really cool experience for the time that it did last. It also helped me realize what was important to me. Those months staying at home made me realize how much I really enjoyed being at home and not having a commute. It also made me realize how much I miss socializing with friends and family. So I got a job in the area as a systems engineer. And very shortly after I started that job, the company wanted to start a software development team. Into that and immediately volunteered for that role. It fit with my goals, right? Software developers often have opportunities to be able to work from home. So I jumped on that immediately. In doing so, they also made me team lead. Couple of years after having that job, I decided I wanted to move back home. That was going to be the only way to be able to be close to family and to be able to be close to the old friends we had made in the area. My wife was having some troubles at work, so she agreed that it was probably in our best interest that we move back, and move back we did. I had a conversation with my company, telling them that I was very interested in keeping the position that they had given me, but it was a non-negotiable for me that I wanted to move back home, and I offered to see if there was any way that we could make it work together. And they said yes. So mission accomplished there. I got to keep the same job, the same position, and work 100% fully remote. And basically what I'm getting back to here is it all comes down to the same process of those 3 steps, right? Recognize your goal, recognize your trajectory, align your trajectory to your goal. And that's all I've been doing over and over. And each one compounds upon the previous and sets you up for more and more and more success. Now, we recently purchased a house. That's what you see back behind me. Recently purchased this house, starting renovations. We have family over every week. We have friends over every week, at least once, sometimes twice. I run Dungeons and Dragons games now from my house, which is fantastic. And our house has really become the hub for our friends. Yeah, that's what I got. What issues am I tackling next? Well, I'm at a stage in my life right now where I want to continue to explore new interests and build new skills. That's actually my main motivation behind starting this YouTube channel. I want to learn about videography, about the fundamentals of lighting, editing, what YouTube is all about. I've been a consumer of YouTube for a very long time, but it'd be nice to actually start producing now. I'm also interested in 3D modeling and texturing, rendering in Unreal Engine. I'm getting into some different hobbies that sound interesting. Health-wise, I think there are 3 fundamental aspects: physical health, mental health, spiritual health. Physically, it's one of my goals to put on some muscle, eat more, start lifting weights more. Mentally, I've made the goal of trying to read at least 1 book a week. Right now, I'm reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Very impactful. And then spiritually, I'm trying to set aside time for daily prayer. I'm Christian. I think it's important to have a prayer life, and that's something I need to work on, and I want to work on. So I'm trying to do just 15 minutes a day. That's my goal for now. Like I said, these things tend to compound and evolve, but for now, setting realistic goals is important. So, in conclusion, living life intentionally has set me up with a meaning-filled, purposeful, and fulfilling life, one that I genuinely enjoy. My vision for this channel is for it to be a place where I can share my story, share my experiences, the lessons that I've learned over the years of what has worked for me, as well as what hasn't worked. Let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular you'd like me to talk about, any stories you'd like to hear, anything you'd like me to dive a little bit more into detail for, or if there's anything in your life that you're struggling with that maybe you'd like some tips and tricks to address, or maybe you'd like to know how I would address it. I'd be absolutely happy to answer any of those questions. And if this kind of content is interesting to you, consider subscribing. Either way, thank you for watching today. If you want more content like this, go ahead and click the link on screen, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.